Parts of Oahu are sinking more quickly than the rest of the island, according to a study by researchers at the University of Hawaii at Manoa.
It began with a sudden flurry of activity near the southern coast of the Big Island, where local fishermen and divers reported seeing strange lights beneath the surface of the water late at night. At first, the accounts were dismissed as either fishing vessels or tricks of the moonlight on the tide. But the consistency of the reports, describing large pulsing lights, bizarre low-frequency sounds, and a sharp rise in marine life behaviors, drew attention. Within days, the U.S. government made an unanticipated and sweeping decision to shut down several major public beaches across the Hawaiian Islands without offering an immediate explanation. Before we start, smash the like and subscribe buttons for more updates. The closures were abrupt. Tourists were told to leave the beaches immediately. Signs were posted warning of unusual marine activity, and in some places, access roads were blocked by military personnel. Local authorities offered only vague statements, citing public safety and environmental assessments. The secrecy surrounding the event stirred immediate speculation. The shutdown wasn't confined to just one island. Popular beaches on Oahu, Maui, and Kauai were included in the restrictions, suggesting a wider and coordinated issue across the archipelago. The mysterious underwater discovery that prompted the government's response was reportedly made by a group of civilian marine researchers collaborating with NOAA on a separate reef preservation project. While conducting routine sonar mapping, they encountered a large geometric anomaly nestled within a deep trench. Something not made of rock or coral, but with sharply defined edges and an unnatural symmetry. Initial scans suggested the object was metallic, perhaps even alloy-based, but of a composition not immediately identifiable through standard analysis. The dimensions alone were staggering, roughly 800 feet in length with a dome-like top and strange angular protrusions along the base. As soon as the data was transmitted, communication protocols changed. Military ships began arriving, setting up exclusion zones around the affected waters. Submersible drones were deployed, and a temporary offshore research facility was erected nearly overnight. Observers from the shore noticed that helicopters circled the same areas at low altitude several times a day, and that access to certain aerial zones had been denied to commercial and private aircraft. This level of mobilization suggested something much larger than a geological anomaly or sunken vessel. The object's presence stirred theories ranging from the historical to the extraterrestrial. Some experts pointed out the proximity of the site to ancient Hawaiian legends of submerged cities and powerful sea gods. The location of the anomaly closely mirrored the settings of old oral traditions, sparking a surge of local interest. Others noted that the shape of the object bore resemblance to certain mythologized Atlantean blueprints: hexagonal design, radiating lines from a central point, and a curious arrangement of smaller satellite-like structures extending from the main body. Scientific institutions across the globe requested access to the sonar data, but the U.S. military had already locked down the site and placed the data under classified protocols. Even long-standing allies were not granted access, suggesting that the discovery held implications that extended far beyond mere academic curiosity. The lack of transparency only fueled further intrigue, especially as whispers emerged about unexplained electromagnetic interference in the vicinity of the anomaly. Boaters near the area reported sudden compass failures and disruptions to their navigation systems. Radio transmissions became static-filled or dropped entirely. These malfunctions were short-lived but consistent, and they coincided with proximity to the restricted zones. At the same time, marine biologists began reporting abnormal activity in local species. Pods of dolphins were seen circling the area in tight formations, as if drawn to something beneath the waves. Humpback whales, typically migratory at this time of year, were observed lingering unusually close to the islands, emitting a series of vocalizations not previously recorded in the region. Reef fish disappeared from their usual haunts, while deep-sea creatures known for their aversion to light began surfacing near shallower waters. The ecological disturbance was undeniable and seemed to center directly around the coordinates of the mysterious object. A particularly unsettling account came from a commercial diver contracted to perform routine maintenance near an offshore wind platform. He described seeing a massive shadow moving beneath him, silent, slow, and utterly enormous. At first, he believed it was a whale, but as it passed under him, he noted that it did not move like any animal. It was linear, unwavering, and gave off an unnatural heat signature detectable even through his insulated diving suit. The experience left him shaken, and his footage was reportedly confiscated shortly after he reported the incident to his company. The decision to shut down the beaches, though disruptive, appears to be an attempt to control both the narrative and the physical access to what might be one of the most significant underwater discoveries of the modern era. Beaches that have never before been subject to government lockdowns, even during hurricane warnings, were emptied with startling efficiency. National Guard units were deployed without media coverage. Patrol boats now circle the coastline, and even local fishermen have been warned not to cast their lines near specific GPS-marked regions. Though the government has made no official statement detailing the nature of the underwater object, insiders suggest that what was discovered may not be terrestrial in origin. The geometry, the anomalous materials, and the accompanying environmental disturbances hint at technologies or phenomena not consistent with any known Earth-based development. Moreover, attempts to penetrate or even sample the object's exterior have thus far failed. High-powered cutting tools reportedly had no effect, and even sonar waves reflect back with distortions unlike those generated by natural underwater formations. Another intriguing facet involves time distortions reported by deep-sea monitoring instruments. Clocks attached to tethered sensors recorded discrepancies, losing or gaining seconds without explanation. This kind of time dilation, even at such small scales, has been theorized in extreme gravitational or electromagnetic fields, but has never before been observed in any documented oceanic environment. It raises chilling questions about what sort of energy the object could be emitting and why it remains impervious to traditional methods of investigation. Back on the surface, the shutdown of Hawaii's beaches has had a ripple effect on tourism, local economies, and community trust. But beyond the economic impact lies a deeper unease. Residents speak in hushed tones about the event, not merely as an inconvenience, but as an omen. Hawaiian spiritual leaders have offered ceremonies near the closed beaches, urging respect and caution. Some believe that whatever lies beneath the waves was meant to stay hidden, and that disturbing it could have consequences beyond what science is prepared to face. The decision to conceal the full nature of the discovery from the public raises ethical concerns as well. Should knowledge of a potentially world-altering phenomenon be kept behind military gates? Is the risk of mass panic a legitimate reason to withhold the truth? Or does the public have a right to understand what's unfolding in the oceans that cradle their communities? These questions are further complicated by the increasing presence of foreign intelligence assets reported by independent maritime trackers. Satellite data suggests that surveillance vessels from at least 2 other nations have maneuvered into international waters just outside the restricted zone. Whatever the US government has found, it has global implications, and everyone wants a piece of the puzzle. Interestingly, the shutdown beaches are not only sites of recreational and economic importance, but also carry cultural and spiritual weight. Sites near the Discovery Zone are part of ancient navigational routes and are considered sacred by native Hawaiian communities. The sudden closure of these areas without explanation or consultation has been viewed by some as a form of desecration. Cultural practitioners have demanded access, citing ancestral stewardship and the right to observe and respond spiritually to phenomena in their ancestral waters. But these requests have gone unanswered. Underwater acoustic recordings taken just prior to the closures captured sounds not previously cataloged in oceanic databases. The low-pitched rumblings followed rhythmic pulses, almost musical in nature, and occurred at consistent intervals. This pattern resembled neither seismic activity nor marine animal communication. Sound engineers who reviewed the initial data noted harmonic structures that suggested some form of deliberate modulation, not random geological noise. In other words, it sounded made. Further complicating matters was a brief and unexplained atmospheric anomaly captured by a weather monitoring station on Kauai. For approximately 6 minutes, a portion of the sky directly above the discovery site registered a temperature spike and a highly localized drop in barometric pressure, completely inconsistent with surrounding readings. Radar also showed a transient object hovering over the area before vanishing from the screen. Attempts to replicate or explain this event using weather models failed. The anomaly remains unexplained and is currently listed as a data irregularity. The psychological impact on those living nearby has also begun to surface. Several locals have reported vivid dreams, often involving water, lights, and strange mechanical sounds. While anecdotal, the sheer volume of such accounts has caught the attention of a team of neuroscientists who have begun studying sleep pattern changes across affected communities. Some early results suggest subtle shifts in circadian rhythms and melatonin levels that align with the timeline of the object's discovery and the implementation of the beach closures. Despite increasing speculation and the insistent buzz of alternative theories, official silence remains unbroken. Naval ships continue to operate just beyond visible distance, and rumors persist that larger submersible craft have been dispatched. Meanwhile, satellite imagery of the ocean's surface in the restricted zone shows odd, concentric wave patterns that cannot be explained by tides or ship activity. These patterns seem to pulse outward from the epicenter at regular intervals, almost like a heartbeat from beneath the sea. Whatever lies beneath Hawaii's suddenly off-limits beaches has triggered one of the most tightly controlled responses to an oceanic discovery in recent history. The implications of such a find, technological, biological, perhaps even interdimensional, are vast. While the official narrative remains cloaked in silence, the observable actions speak volumes. Something has been found. Something powerful, something unknown. And for now, it sits silently in the depths, guarded, observed, and untouched, its presence altering not just the tides, but perhaps the course of human understanding itself. In the weeks following the initial shutdown, the sense of mystery deepened as access to satellite imagery over key regions of the Pacific was quietly restricted. Services that typically offer near real-time overhead views suddenly returned outdated or obscured images, with sections of water appearing unnaturally blurred or blacked out. Civilian access to these images, once taken for granted by researchers and hobbyists alike, was now subject to unexplained delays. This change went largely unnoticed by the broader public, but didn't escape the attention of professionals who rely on satellite data for oceanographic studies. They were left wondering, what exactly required such secrecy from space? Meanwhile, underwater seismic sensors stationed around the Hawaiian seafloor began detecting microtremors that didn't match the pattern of tectonic activity. These weren't aftershocks from known fault lines nor results of volcanic movements, but rather symmetrical vibrations occurring at fixed intervals. The tremors were small, barely noticeable to surface dwellers, but their precision and rhythm suggested something artificial. These pulses echoed through the water like a drumbeat from the deep, hinting at a process occurring within the newly discovered structure. The repetition was exact, as though governed by machinery or an unknown natural process yet to be classified by science. In response to growing internal speculation, the U.S. Navy established an offshore command post aboard a high-tech vessel rumored to be equipped with classified deep-sea exploration tools. This ship maintained a constant position directly above the anomaly, with smaller support vessels ferrying personnel, equipment, and possibly data back and forth. Observers using long-range lenses captured glimpses of crates and cargo containers, marked not just with military insignias, but with symbols attributed to aerospace research labs, advanced materials institutes, and even quantum physics think tanks. The convergence of such a wide range of scientific expertise raised eyebrows among those following the story. If this were merely a sunken relic or a shipwreck, why summon the minds behind particle accelerators and antimatter containment? Inside the restricted area, divers equipped with cutting-edge suits, normally reserved for deep-pressure environments, were deployed in tight intervals. Their missions, often brief and heavily guarded, followed a repeating schedule that aligned with the microseismic pulses. It was as if their actions had to synchronize with something happening within the structure, possibly to avoid harmful exposure or to interface with whatever systems may exist within it. The fact that traditional scuba or submersible dives weren't used spoke volumes. This wasn't just about exploring a structure, it was about interacting with it under very specific and possibly dangerous conditions. At the same time, sensors located at buoys surrounding the area began to register fluctuations in salinity and temperature unlike any previously recorded in the region. The water immediately around the site showed chemical anomalies, with trace elements not typically found in seawater. Some readings hinted at isotopes that exist in theoretical models of high-energy reactions, yet are unstable under normal Earth conditions. While official agencies remain silent, a few independent oceanographers who had access to peripheral data from nearby sensors began drawing their own conclusions. Something beneath the waves was changing the chemical makeup of its environment, actively and continuously. Perhaps even more unsettling were the audio disturbances recorded by marine microphones placed miles away from the epicenter. These sounds, complex and multi-layered, defied easy categorization. Unlike any whale song or tectonic shift, they featured modulated frequencies that spanned both above and below human hearing. When slowed down, some of the audio formed patterns that eerily resembled language, structured, paced, and consistent. Whether these were natural resonances, mechanical feedback loops, or something more intelligent, no one could say. But researchers who examined the files agreed on one thing: the sounds were not random. With public curiosity swelling, independent journalists and citizen investigators attempted to breach the restricted zones by air and sea. A few managed to get close before being intercepted. One drone operator launched an aerial probe from a nearby island and managed to stream several minutes of footage showing unusual surface phenomena. Specifically, faint concentric rings expanding outward from a single point, with the water within those rings appearing unusually calm, almost glassy despite surrounding waves. That footage, once leaked online, was quickly removed across platforms, citing copyright violations and national security risks. Still, fragments circulated among communities dedicated to studying unexplained phenomena. Interestingly, a rise in electrical disturbances was reported not just around the discovery site, but across broader areas of the Pacific. Commercial aircraft flying over nearby flight paths logged temporary disruptions in navigation systems. Pilots reported flickering cockpit instruments and unexplained magnetic fluctuations. Even transoceanic cables, those that carry digital communication beneath the sea, began registering subtle transmission delays and signal loss. Technicians attributed this to oceanic background interference, but those who knew the cable's proximity to the anomaly questioned that explanation. At ground level, local Hawaiian communities grew increasingly uneasy. Beyond the economic blow of losing beach access during a critical tourist season, the cultural impact cut deeper. Certain chants, dances, and rituals once performed near those very waters were halted out of caution, or in some cases, fear. Elders who had rarely spoken of the old stories began to come forward. These oral histories, long dismissed as symbolic, now seemed uncannily aligned with the events unfolding offshore. In academic circles, the lack of data transparency provoked frustration. Marine scientists, physicists, and geologists who had dedicated careers to studying the Pacific were now locked out of what could be the most significant underwater event of the century. A few broke ranks, giving interviews under anonymity, hinting at briefings they'd attended before being cut off from further access. One described the object as having non-Newtonian dimensions, suggesting that its internal structure did not align with the spatial rules of our reality. Another said it emitted a form of radiation not detectable on the traditional electromagnetic spectrum, something closer to structured vacuum energy, a term previously confined to theoretical papers on propulsion systems. Meanwhile, above the anomaly, the weather continued to behave strangely. Cloud patterns formed and dispersed at unnatural rates, and isolated rainstorms seemed to follow strange geometric outlines as they moved over the sea. Weather satellites tracking these patterns noted unusual vortex shapes forming at regular intervals, something that, while not immediately dangerous, was statistically improbable. Meteorologists began to wonder whether the object's presence or its activation was influencing atmospheric conditions on a scale not previously observed in the region. In international circles, tensions quietly escalated. The Chinese Navy increased patrols in the Western Pacific, while Russian maritime vessels lingered longer than usual near neutral zones. Even Australia, typically a quieter player in these waters, launched joint surveillance exercises with Japanese forces under the guise of training drills. Diplomatically, no one acknowledged the elephant in the room, but all movement pointed to one truth. The anomaly, whatever it was, had become an object of global interest and possibly contention. Possession, or even partial understanding, could represent a shift in technological or strategic superiority that no major power wanted to miss. If you liked this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, leave your comments below and tell us, what are your thoughts on Hawaii beach closures? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching and see you next time.